Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschachadi Shatarne. Shri Ishopanishad.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Prabhupada. Would you mind turning on your video?
Okay, you're going to put the mantra.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Is Janak there?
Yeah, he'll recite.
Yeah, he likes doing that for invocation, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. Om Purnamada.
Om Purnamidam Purnat Purnamaduchyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Ishavashamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena bhunjita magvidha kashyasvidhanam kurvanevaha karmani jijiva shechchatam samaha evam tvainanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. Asurya nama te loka andena tamasa vrita tamste precha biga janti yeke chatmahano janaha. Ani jadekam manaso jabio nanya devapnuvam purvam arshat tadhavato nyanachite titistat tasminapo matarishva dadati tad ejati tad naijati tad dure tad bantike tad antarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya shabhayataha. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani evanupashyati sarva bhuteshu chakmanam tato navi jagupsate. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhutvi janataha tatra ko mohaka shoka ekatvam manupashyataha. Saparya makayam avrinam ashnaviram shudam apapaviram kavir manishi paribur swayambhur yatat yatatoridan vyadadach chasvatibhya samabhyaha. Andham tamaha pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuyeva te tamo ya uvidyayam rataha. Anyadevahur vidyaya anyadahur avidyaya iti shushumadhiranam yenastad vichachakshire. Vidyam cha yas tad vedo bhayam saha avidyayamrityum tirtva vidyayamritam ashnute. Andham tama pravishanti ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuyeva te tamo yau sambhutyam rataha. Anyadevahu sambhavat anyadahura sambhavat iti shushumadhiranam yenastad vichachakshire. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedo bhayam saha vinashenamrityum tirtva sambhuchamritam ashnute. Hiranmayena Padrena Satyashat Pihitam Mukam Tattvam Pushana Pavidu Satya Dharmaya Dristaye Pushane Karshayama Surya Prajapatya Vyuharasmin Samuha Tejo Yate Rupam Kalyanam Tamam Tate Pashamyo Savaso Purusho Sohamasmi Ayuranilam Amritam Atedam Basmantam Shariram Om Krito Smara Kritam Smara Krito Smara Kritam Smara Agninaya Supatare Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vitan Yayodya Smad Juhurana Meno Bhuyishtam Te Nama Uktim Videma Om Purnam Madaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamiva Vashishyate. So we're on mantra 9 this evening. You'll be putting that on the screen. Antam tamaha pravishanti
Andham tama pravishanti.
ye vidyam upasate
Ye vidyam upasate.
o bhuyeva te tamo
Tato bhuya ivate tamo
ta uvidyayam rataha
yayu vidyayam rataha
Andam tamaha pravishanti
andam tamaha pravishanti
yam upasate
ye vidyam upasate
bhuyeva te tamo
tato bhuya ivate tamo
ta uvidyayam rataha
yayu vidyayam rataha
Andam tama pravishanti
andam tamaha pravishanti
e vidyam upasate
ye vidyam upasate
o bhuyeva te tamo
tato bhuya ivate tamo
ya uvidyayam rataha.
yayu vidyayam rataha
Someone else?
Annam tamaha pravishanti
Andam tamaha pravishanti
ye vidyam upasate
ye vidyam upasate
tatho bhuya ivate tamo
tato bhuya ivate tamo
yayu vidyayam rataha
yayo vidyayam rataha.
Andham tama pravishanti
Andam
Andam
tamaha
tamaha
pravishanti
pravishanti
ye vidyam upasate
ye
ye
vidyam
vidyam
upasate
Prabhuya evate tamo
tatho bhuya ivate tamo
Yahu vidyayam rataha.
yayu
yayo
vidyayam
vidyam
rataha
rataha. Andam tamaha pravishanti
Andam tamaha pravishanti
ye vidyayam upasate
ye vidyayam upasate
tato bhuya ivate tamo
tato bhuya ivate tamo
yayo vidyayam rataha.
yayu vidyayam rataha
Andam tama pravishanti
Andam tamaha pravishanti
ye vidyam upashite
ye vidyam upasate
tato bhuya evite tamo
tato bhuya ivate tamo
yaru vidyayam rataha.
yayu
Yayo
vidyayam
vidyayam
rataha
rataha.
Andam tamaha pravishanti
Andam tamaha pravishanti
ye vidyam upasate
ye vidyam upasate
tato bhuya evate tamo
tatho bhuya ivate tamo
ya vidyayam rata
Yahu vidyayam rataha.
Andam tamaha pravishanti.
Andam tamaha pravishanti.
Ye vidyam upasate.
Ye vidyam upasate.
Tato bhuya iva te tamo.
Tato bhuya ivate tamo.
Yayu vidyayam rataha.
Yayu vidyayam rataha.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Andam,
Andam,
gross ignorance.
gross ignorance.
Tamaha,
Tamaha,
darkness.
darkness.
Pravishanti,
Pravishanti,
enter
enter into.
Yea,
Ye,
those who.
those who.
Avidyam,
Avidyam,
nescience.
nescience.
Upasate,
Upasate,
worship.
worship.
Tataha,
Tataha,
and that.
than that.
Bhuyaha,
Bhuyaha,
still more.
still more.
Eva,
Eva,
like.
like.
Te,
Te,
they.
they.
Tamaha,
Tamaha,
darkness.
darkness.
Ye,
Yea,
those who.
those who. Who
Also.
also.
Vidyayam,
Vidyayam,
in the culture of knowledge.
in the culture of knowledge.
Rataha,
Rataha,
engaged.
engaged.
Translation. Srila Prabhupada. Those who engage in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Purport. This mantra offers a comparative study of vidya and avidya. Avidya, or ignorance, is undoubtedly dangerous, but vidya, or knowledge, is even more dangerous when mistaken or misguided. This mantra of Sri Isopnisad is more applicable today than at any time in the past. Modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education. I can't see the word behind there. But the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. Someone else like to read?
As far as Vidya is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, a godless civilization directed towards the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated.
Of the different classes of men, karmis, jnanis, and yogis, the karmis are those who are engaged in the activities of sense gratification. In the modern civilization, 99.9% of the people are engaged in the activities of sense gratification under the flags of industrialism, economic development, altruism, political activism, and so on. All these activities are more or less based on satisfaction of the senses, to the exclusion of the kind of God consciousness described in the first mantra.
It all goes back to Ishavasham, huh? Someone else?
In the language of Bhagavad Gita 7.15, people who are engaged in gross sense gratification are mudhas, asses. The ass is a symbol of stupidity. Those who simply engage in the profitless pursuit of sense gratification are worshipping avidya, according to Sri Upanishad. And those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. The advancement of learning by a godless people is as dangerous as a valuable jewel on the hood of a cobra. A cobra decorated with a valuable jewel is more dangerous than one not decorated. In the Hari Bhakti Sudoya, 3:11:12, the advancement of education by a godless people is compared to decorations on a dead body. In India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. In the same way, modern civilization is a patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are aimed toward sense gratification, but above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization, realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to such realization must be considered avidya, or nescience. And to culture such nescience means to go down to the darkest region of ignorance.
Someone else?
According to the Bhagavad Gita 2.42, 7.15, mistaken mundane educators are known as Vedavada Vrata and Maya Frita Gnana. They may also be atheistic demons, the lowest of men. Those who are Vedavadarata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately they are completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.15, it is said that the purpose of the Vedas is to know the personality of Godhead. But these Vedavadarata men are not at all interested in the personality of Godhead. On the contrary, they are fascinated by such fruity results as the attainment of heaven.
As stated in Mantra 1, we should know that the personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything, and that we must be satisfied with our allotted portions of necessities of life. The purpose of all Vedic literature is to awaken this God consciousness in the forgetful living being. And the same purpose is presented in various ways in the different scriptures of the world for the understanding of a foolish mankind. Thus, the ultimate purpose of all religions is to bring one back to Godhead.
Anyone else?
But the Vedavada people, instead of realizing that the purpose of the Vedas is to revive the forgetful soul's lost relationship with the personality of Godhead, take it for granted that such side issues as attainment of heavenly pleasure for sense gratification, the lust for which causes their material bondage in the first place, are the ultimate end of the Vedas. Such people misguide others by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. Sometimes they even condemn the Puranas, which are authentic Vedic explanations for laymen. The Vedavadarathas give their own explanations of the Vedas, neglecting the authority of the great teachers, that is Acharyas. They also tend to raise some unscrupulous person from among themselves and present him as the leading exponent of Vedic knowledge. Such Vedavadarathas are especially condemned in this mantra by the very appropriate Sanskrit words Vidyayam Rataha. Vidyayam refers to the study of the Vedas because the Vedas are the origin of all knowledge. Vidya and Rataha means those engaged. Vidyayam Rataha, this means those engaged in the study of the Vedas. The so-called student of the Vedas are condemned herein because they are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas on account of their disobeying the Acharyas. Such Vedavadarathas search out meanings in every word of the Vedas to suit their own purposes. They do not know that the Vedic literature is a collection of extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chain of disciplic succession.
One must approach a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12. These Vedavada people, however, have their own acharyas who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus, they progress into the darkest region of ignorance by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. They fall even further into ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all.
The Maya Aprita Jnana class of men are self-made gods. Such men think that they themselves are God and that there is no need of worshipping any other god. They will agree to worship an ordinary man if he happens to be rich, but they will never worship the personality of Godhead. Such men, unable to recognize their own foolishness, never consider how it is that God can be entrapped by Maya, his own illusionary energy. If God were ever entrapped by Maya, Maya would be more powerful than God. Such men say that God is all powerful, but they do not consider that if he is all powerful, there is no possibility of his being overpowered by Maya. These self-made gods cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves.
Those who engage in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. So in this mantra, avidya, nescience, and vidya, so-called knowledge, are compared. One of the Chatur Shloki verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's 4 verses that are the original Bhagavatam. They're called Chatur Shloki. They are in the 2nd canto. You'll find them, chapter 9. And one of them goes, Rite vritam yad pratyeta na pratyeta chatmani tad vidyam atmano mayam yata bhaso yata tamaha. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So that's what avidya is seeing things separate from Krishna. Because in actuality, everything is connected to Krishna. Everything is either Krishna or Krishna's energy. And true knowledge is seeing everything in relation to Krishna. Ishavasham idam sarvam. It seems like every verse goes back to seeing Ishavasham, the Ishavasham principle of seeing Krishna as the supreme controller, the proprietor, and seeing that we're his servants and we should accept our quota and use everything in his service. But we lose sight of that reality and we become captivated by Krishna's external energy, his Maya. But the verdict of the Vedas is that we should go to the light. Tamasi ma jyotirgama. Come to the light. Don't try to be happy in darkness. Real happiness is in the light of true knowledge. It's difficult because we've been conditioned for so many years, but we have to start somewhere, you know. So many lifetimes we've been cultivating this avidya, this darkness, thinking that material success, sense gratification, thinking that's the all in all, that's the goal of life. Enjoy while you can, eat, drink, drink and be merry, for tomorrow we shall die. This is sort of a motto of Western civilization. You know? We spend our entire lives trying to amass great wealth, getting big homes, fancy cars, high degrees in material education, a big position in society. They are impressive achievements, but without Krishna in the equation, it's actually useless. There's nothing wrong with a material opulence, but if we don't add Krishna to that, then it's all lost. At the end of this life, it's all gone. It's, what do you say, profitless pursuits of sense gratification. That's what Prabhupada said in the purport. It's nothing wrong with having material opulence. There's been many devotees who have had material opulence, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, many kings. They have whole kingdoms, but they use it in Krishna service. You know, they're not distracted. The problem is when we get distracted from life's ultimate purpose and lose sight of the true pursuit of things that we should be doing. Queen Kunti mentions this in her prayers. Janmaishwarya Shuta Shribir Edamana Puman Naivahati Abidatum Vai Twamakinchanat Gocharam. She says that your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself by respectable parentage, great opulence, bodily beauty, high education, cannot approach you with sincere feelings. For us, it's better to live a simple life, as Prabhupada stressed, simple living and high thinking. Better to live according to this Ishavasya principle, accepting our quota and focusing on spiritual elevation. Because the result of living a life of only material pursuits, as is mentioned in here, leads to the darkest regions of ignorance. And we see that the result of living this type of life also causes people so much anxiety and stress, depression, frustrations, addictions, and suicide. You know, we need to have more of a balanced, wholesome life. We can simple, but it can be comfortable. It shouldn't be too austere that we aren't able to focus on our spiritual life. But we need to focus on what is real, what is substantial, that which is going to stay with us. And that's our spiritual life. If we're not educated in the spiritual life, we're nothing but polished animals. Prabhupada compares it the mudhas, you know, it's an ass. If we're just working hard day and night, you know, for that carrot dangling in front of us, we're nothing better than a hog, dog, camel, or ass, or, you know, two-legged animals. Prabhupada often said, you know, where is that educational institute that teaches the science of the soul? That's real education. It's not good to be in ignorance, in avidya, simply absorbed in material life, material advancement. That's considered bad here. You know, it's not good. But even worse is when we are engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Because when we're engaged in so-called knowledge, trying to achieve high position, high education, we often, people, you know, mislead others, and they start, you know, they gain respect by their positions. And then Prabhupada compares it in the purport here to, the first one is dangerous like a snake, you know, to be just in ignorance. It's dangerous like a snake, but the person who has the so-called knowledge, they're compared to the snake with the jewel, with the jewel in the head. And there are lower planets where there are snakes, lower planets, the hellish region, where it's dark all the time except for the light from the jewels of the snake's head. So these jewels, they can be very attractive and allure others. Other people can become captivated by these jewels. It makes the snake, you know, more alluring and more attractive for others. But that's considered even more dangerous. One may have a big degree, a PhD, a double master's, be a big scientist or philosopher or scholar, These are compared to the decorations or the jewels on the snake's head, because these people are seen as authority. People respect them, they like to hear their opinions, but oftentimes they have bad character. Their interest is in material pursuits. They don't have the spiritual knowledge. They can misguide people, mesmerizing them with these decorations, these high positions. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur liked to say that it's a society of the cheaters and the cheated. And Prabhupada often said that it's like the blind leading the blind, and that they will end up in a ditch, and that's darkness. The ditch is dark. They themselves will end up in darkness, and those who follow them will also. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a nice verse where it says that for a person who is devoid of devotional service, birth in a great family or nation, knowledge of the revealed scriptures, performance of austerities and penances, and chanting of Vedic mantras are like ornaments on a dead body. Such ornaments simply serve the concocted pleasures of the general populace. And that's what Prabhupada is saying in this purport. And there's no real benefit in decorating a dead body. And one who neglects the soul is like a dead body, walking around in a dead body. The soul is asleep. What is it? We had that verse earlier, one who kills the soul, one who nullifies the soul's existence. But thank you. Real education is spiritual education, knowledge and God realization. It's substantial, it stays with us, like I mentioned. And in this purport, Prabhupada mentioned that there's 4 types of people who do not surrender unto Krishna, the duskritinas or miscreants. They're the mudas, the grossly foolish, the naradamas, the lowest among mankind, or those who are naradamas. They may be socially or politically developed, but they have no religious principles. They lose their chance to revive their lost consciousness and go down. The example is Jagai and Madai. They were in a high social position, but they had they were of low character, lowest among mankind, because they were engaging in all sorts of sinful activities, but they weren't cultivating their spiritual life at all. And there's the Maya Parita Gyanas, which Prabhupada mentions here too, and their knowledge is stolen by illusion. Their erudite knowledge is considered nullified by the influence of Maya, stolen by illusion. They're mostly very learned philosophers, poets, scholars, scientists. And today, Prabhupada says there's a great many of them, even among Bhagavad Gita scholars, and they tend to mislead others with their Mayavadi interpretations. And despite the Lord's clear statements in the Bhagavad Gita, they deride his supreme personhood. They deride his being a person, and they consider him merely another human being, not an extraordinary human being. They consider him an ordinary human being. Not knowing that our human form is actually designed after Krishna's form. Like the Bible says that man is made in the image of God. And we cannot have something that God does not have. I think they don't consider these type of things. They believe that the Brahman is supreme. And then there's the Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. Those are the Asuras, or outright atheists, demoniac people. And the Vedavada Rata mentioned in here, It's not one of the 4 listed, but in this purport, Prabhupada mentions the Vedavada Ratas as the ones who study the Vedas, but they don't come to the right conclusion. They use the Vedas for materialistic persons. They're attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas, as the Bhagavad Gita says. Yamimam pushpitam vacham. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there is nothing more than this. They may appear very learned, but they have diverted from the real purpose of the Vedas, which is to understand Krishna, as he himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaishcha sarvaraham eva vedyo, Vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. By the Vedas, I am to be known. The Vedavada Ratas are generally interested in the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas, which describes different ritualistic ceremonies on how to achieve a higher position, for better material enjoyment. They tend to use religion for how to get a finer sense gratification, how to get a higher birth. They seek the heavenly planets, the somarasa, but it's all material and therefore temporary. And they tend to think that is the purpose of the Vedas, to get better material facility. Their focus is on the material world, and therefore that's where they remain. Andham tamaha pravishanti. And they go down to the darkest regions of ignorance, downward spiral. Well, they go up and down due to these performing all these activities. For them to be a first-class man is in a high position with material opulence, to gain many followers, have beautiful women, quite the opposite of Lord Chaitanya's Nadanam Najanam Nasundaram. I do not desire great wealth, beautiful women, any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. As Prabhupada says in this here, it's a profitless pursuit of sense gratification. The Vedavata Ratas don't realize that their lust for sense gratification is what caused their material life in the first place. They're constantly going up and down in the cycle of birth and death. But according to the Vedic literature, the first-class man is recognized by his character and his qualities, and guna karma vibhagasha. The first-class man is a brahmana in the mode of goodness, who is simple and satisfied with what God has given, and he accepts his quota. He lives according to the Ishavashram principle, and he's has the shamodamas tapashocham. He's peacefulness. He's peaceful. He's self-controlled, austere, pure, honest. He has knowledge, real knowledge, as described here. Not the so-called knowledge described here, I'm sorry. He has real knowledge, which is described in Bhagavad Gita. And interesting, the first quality of knowledge described in the Bhagavad Gita is humility. And it's not very humble to think oneself God, as the impersonalists do. And another quality of the Brahmin is wisdom, not just knowledge, but vijnana, realized knowledge. That means it's practical. He acts on that knowledge. It's his. And religiousness is also one. He knows the real purpose of religion. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work, as it mentions in the Bhagavad Gita. And the Brahmana, these are his ornaments. These are his attractive features. And there's more qualities of knowledge listed in the Bhagavad Gita, which are really nice. We read it when we were studying chapter 13. But That's the real first-class man, the Brahmana. He understands where his energy, where his focus, his efforts should be placed. It says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tasyaiva hetu prajate, I can't remember now. The one that ends with Kovido. Prabhupada quotes it a lot. Tasyaiva hetu
Prayateta kovida.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Prabhupada quotes that a lot. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable, even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. Happiness and distress, they come of their own accord, like the summer and winter seasons. But we have to learn to tolerate them and not be disturbed, as the Bhagavad Gita says. But that's wisdom, knowing that these things will come of their own accord. We don't have to pursue them. We don't have to over-endeavor for that which is difficult to obtain. All these things, all these truth of the Vedas can only be understood, as Prabhupada says in the purport here, the necessity of approaching a bona fide spiritual master is because we can't really properly understand these things without approaching one who knows the truth. He quotes, well, he doesn't say the Sanskrit, but one has to understand things properly. In order to understand things properly, we must, and the must is emphasized twice, must approach with firewood in hand, spiritual master. Tad vigyanartam sagarum eva bigachet. That's it. Shrotriyam brahmanishtam. That's from the Mundaka Upanishad. To understand things properly, we must humbly approach the spiritual master with firewood in the hand. And that firewood, that represents performing service, menial service to the spiritual master, as Krishna himself recommends in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatina pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gyanam gyaninas tattvadarshina. That one should try to learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master, render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. And Krishna is the original spiritual master, and a bona fide guru in disciplic succession from Krishna can deliver Krishna's message unchanged. He can deliver it as it is. And with that connection, then we can understand the truth as it is. But oftentimes, others claim to have authority of the Vedas without coming in this bona fide disciplic succession, and misinterpret, they misrepresent, and can lead others into the darkest region of ignorance. Andam tamaha pravishanti. And the other one, the Maya Parhita Jnana class, their knowledge is stolen by illusion. They think that they are God, that we are all God, and God ultimately has no form. Prabhupada says in here that they may believe that God is all powerful, yet they can't explain that if we are all God and God is all powerful, how can we come under the control of Maya? That means Maya is more powerful than God. This Prabhupada said they cannot explain that. The meaning of God is no one equal to or greater than. Asamurdha, asamurdha. That's the meaning of God. The impersonalists, they don't accept Bhagavan as supreme. I know there's a couple classes of impersonalists, the Brahmavadis and the Mayavadis. I believe they're almost the same. The both impersonalists, the Brahmavadis, they don't know Bhagavan, and the Mayavadis, they imagine Bhagavan to be a temporary manifestation of Brahman. But for both, Brahman is the ultimate, and Prabhupada quotes that verse quite often. Yenye ravindaksha vimukti maninas twayasta bhavada vishudha budaya arukrachena param tata patantyadho nadrita yusmadangraya. It's from the 10th canto. I believe Lord Brahma with the demigods are saying to the Lord, O lotus-eyed, O Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from the position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet, because they have not taken shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. They have not tasted the nectar of his lotus feet. They're not able to maintain their position and they fall down. They fall down again to philanthropic work, to open hospitals like that, and again pursue their material activities, continuing and going up and down, repeated birth and death. And I know it's getting late. I should ask for questions at this point. There's a lot in this purport. Prabhupada has lengthy purports in a lot of these verses, but they're very nice. Any questions, comments, corrections, enlightenments? Anything?
I have a question. And I'm assuming that this is kind of, it's so hard to articulate this. It talks about the pursuit of knowledge. And a lot of us do that as part of our work.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's okay because we're giving the fruits to Krishna. Is that?
Yeah, and you're not doing it in order to achieve a greater sense gratification, to gain followers. And yeah, knowledge is fine. It's good to be educated. But like you said, it's how you use it. It's almost like nothing's good or bad, but it's how you use it, you know, like a knife. You can use it for cutting vegetables, or you can use it to harm somebody. Or, it's all in the use in the consciousness. Bhavagrahi Janardana. Krishna picks up the mood or the bhava, the love of the devotee. It's, you know, it's not the externals.
Okay.
It's actually good to be educated, you know, you can, because people respect that, you can use it in your preaching, you know. It's not good to be, I mean, it's okay if you're not educated too. Anyone can be a devotee, but utility is the principle. We use everything in Krishna service, or even if, you know, you have to use it for your job, that's fine too, because you have a job to maintain yourself so you can engage in service and think of Krishna and live somewhat comfortably while executing your service.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. It's when one misses the point of all the education and becomes a big scientist and then misleads people that there is no God, and see, I prove it, and you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense, I guess. The people who, even like the people who study the Bhagavad Gita but don't get the point that God is personal.
That's why it's recommended we learn the truth by approaching someone who knows the truth. You know, it's like, it's not what you know, but it's who you know, in order to get into the spiritual world. You know, connect with the right club, the right person. Someone who's already in the inner circle. You know, they know how to get you in.
You can leave my name at the door. You and my guru.
Yeah, it's all in You know, Prabhupada says that the bona fide spiritual master, you know, coming in disciplic succession, because he gives the same message that Krishna is the original guru. He imparted the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma. That's amazing, you know, and where the Brahma, Gaudiya, Vaishnava Sampradaya, we're connected. It's like our lifeline. Sampradaya Vihina, yeah. There's 4 bona fide Vaishnava Sampradayas. And I don't know, in the impersonalist realm, who starts their sampradayas. I guess Sankaracharya, I believe, maybe he started. But before him, I don't know. The Buddha, Nirvashesha.
It sounds to me like, if you think about it, those are started much later. Like ours starts with Brahma. It seems like it's more close to the original knowledge.
Right. I'm wondering, Shankaracharya, I don't know what line he appeared in, you know.
Yeah.
Jiva, what is Maya ya Paharta Jnana?
One whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. Maya Pahrita Jnana. That's how it's. Like the Mayavadis, everything is Maya. Everything is illusion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they believe that from illusion, everything in this world is illusion. They don't accept form.
Form. Right.
Yeah.
And
Like
Veda Vada Vrata, Mataji?
Veda Vada Rata. Those are those who use the Vedas for materialistic pursuits. Rata, they're engaged. Rata means engaged. Veda Vada. Vada means like a school of thought. And the Vedas, they use the Vedas, but they use the Vedas for mostly the Karma Kanda, you know, to rise up, to attain the heavenly planets, high parentage, material opulence.
Mm-hmm.
It says in the verse, they pose as learned. They pose as learned, themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately, they're completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas.
Mm-hmm. They're attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas. Yeah. And they think that's the goal of the Vedas. They don't understand the real goal. And yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, they want to drink that somaras.
Like there is
even here they were the fountain of youth, right?
Right. Mataji, can we like one community in India, especially in Bengal and Odisha area, so they call themselves as Goswami, but they will eat fish. They consider fish as prasad of Ganga. So can we call them as under this category Veda, because they are like birth-wise they are born in Goswami means a Brahmin. So but still they are under they are using their birth, but the knowledge is not the knowledge is being misused, spiritual knowledge.
But do they use the Vedas to support their activities?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, Mataji.
Oh, then yeah, I would believe so. I imagine there's different types that fit in these categories. Yeah. Wow. Interesting, huh? What people can.
One of my friend, like his surname was Goswami. So I just asked him. So he was from Odisha, and but he said that he is a Brahmin, but by birth he's a Brahmin, but he eats fish. They consider fish as like vegetarian, as Ganga Fal.
Because they eat fish so much, they got to come up with some
some justification
to make it okay,
And some justify it. They started eating it when there was a famine, but they don't recognize there's no famine now.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, I believe fish is popular in that area. Larissa. Anything else? I know it's 8 o'clock. Well, thank you for joining. Isopnisad, my humble obeisance. Happy birthday to Vanya.
Yeah. I just sent a Facebook message. Yeah.
It's Daro Krishna's birthday too today.
Oh, is it?
Oh, it is?
Nice.
Thank you, Jivama, for remembering.
Pass it on to her. Or...
Sure, definitely.
It's Halloween too.
It's Halloween.
Yeah.
Please keep safe.
Yeah, we had one person at our door, my neighbor. That's it.
This year I didn't participate. I switched off the lights.
Yeah.